Hello folks. So I'm just going to expand the data in relation to Amenhotep and Amenhotep, who is the prime perfected being according to Talmudic Judaism, and that Amenhotep is androgynous but presents himself as a male, and that Amenhotep is the purest form of Adam, incorporating both male and female as androgynous, and thus being the origin of all the souls of the Talmudic Jew. And this is opposed to biblical Adam, who they class as the wicked man and the unnecessary man. And as we discussed in that video, they are, through that is sanctioned to exterminate everything that comes from the biblical Adam. Now, when we're looking for origin of this Talmudic doctrine, you hit a brick wall if you try and go beyond Akhenaten's father, who himself worshipped the Aten, not to the degree that Akhenaten did, but he did introduce it and gave it validity within the Egyptian religious law, to the dismay of the priesthood, the Egyptian priesthood. So we can say that the move for the monotheistic religion and the one God idea was sort of moved into Egypt by Akhenaten's father. Now, of course, Akhenaten, as we know, he moved that in his 17 years into the be-all and end-all, destroying everything else and moving his temple to Minor. Now, when you look at the images of Akhenaten, you are definitely seeing a strange creature, and you can tell when you look at the posterior, etc., the position of the back, the hips, etc., afforded to Akhenaten. He's trying to present himself as this androgynous Amenhotep, but in the lesser, the Amenhotep, which is said to be important to the Adamic race here, which, if you get into the Sumerian, is definitely, the Adam was a colony, and the Eve was a tribe, so it was the Eves. So you can see then that they've divided the story of Adam and Eve into two different stories completely, and they refute the biblical Adam as the wicked expression, the that which needs to be eradicated off the earth in order they can infuse the earth with the souls of Amenhotep. So when we're looking at the origin of the laws of man, which is what Yeshua decried throughout his mission, in fact that was his mission, to decry the laws of man to reinforce the laws of the Creator, you can then see that the Talmud, along with the Zohar and the nonsense that is the Midrash, which formed the Kabbalic system of magic, the magical system, which ultimately creates the matrix in which those adhering to that system will ultimately have to obey. So we can say then that Akhenaten is the man in question who presents this androgynous, and therefore those said to be born of the pure form of the Amenhotep, which is Amenhotep. So there you can see, it's clear then that there is a massive distinction between the biblical law and this nonsense law, which is behind the Noahide system, behind Zionism, and ultimately comes out from the body of knowledge we know as the Renaissance, which sort of amalgamated into what we know as theosophy. So we could say then that theosophy is the overriding script under which Zionism, etc., has been formed. And so now you can see that the shift has been off the biblical man, which is why they deride so much the Torah, while pretending that they're operating for it, or in fact operating from this twisted idea of Amenhotep as being the pure form, and that all that comes forth from the biblical Adam must be eradicated from the face of the earth. So that's where we're at in relation to where the distinction comes into, why they have to incorporate this Noahide system while claiming it to be of the Torah. Now that's the important point. If it was of the Torah, it would still be under the Mosaic law, the Ten Commandments. Clearly it's not. It mimics it in essence, but when you get into the sub-laws, then you can see how it will be made to mean exactly what the priesthood actually wants once it's implemented and enforced. I mean, it's been enforced now, by the way. The meetings that they've been having in September did include Chabad Lubavitch rabbis, and as I've said in previous videos, I'm quite convinced that all the global meetings that they postponed from earlier in the year when they launched COVID and transferred them to September, it would suggest to me that these rabbis of Chabad Lubavitch, who are clearly a representation of this Talmudic Adam Helion androgynous freak show, have ordained the commencement of the depopulation, and which is why we've gone into lockdown again. They're moving it further. They're threatening you with fines of £10,000. How ridiculous. If you believe in that, you really are a fruit bat. In order to push forward this Agenda 21, which is going to launch the UNICEF and its religious format over everything else, and the laws of which will be the Noahide system. So there we can see Akhenaten as cause of this, as Yeshua called, the synagogue of Satan. So even Yeshua was distinguishing between the Judeans, who later became known as Jews by the Syrians, who were still operating according to the Old Testament, the Torah, the biblical tradition, as opposed to those operating the Talmudic doctrine, which has slowly but surely been encroaching upon biblical tradition and the Christian religion. And of course, you can say that this system also had a big play in the fact that everything that Islam knows about Muhammad, the writings of his life, etc., were not written until some 250 to 300 years after his time. And also when you look into the mosques of the early times of what we call Islam, were all facing Petra. They were all pointing to Petra, not Mecca. And it would appear that Mecca came into the mix in the rewritings of what the world knows about the guy Muhammad, some 250 to 300 years later. So when you start to look at it in this way, you can see how the division between biblical doctrine and this Talmudic doctrine has been shoving itself upon all the religions that take their foundation from the Hebrew tradition. The mask is falling in relation to historical fact, interconnections of priesthoods, etc., and the division between the two. The mask is coming off in relation to that subject matter, while the entire human population begin to wear the mask. So bit of symbolism there and a bit of irony if you want, but it is important that we do get to the bottom of the origins of this nonsensical system that's been implemented across the world, turning children into confused creatures in order they can lay the claim that they're androgynous by birth and that they are then naturally of this pure raft of souls found only within Adam Helion. So if you support the transgender confusion agenda, you need to understand that you are stepping out of biblical tradition and into this Babylonian Talmudic tradition that obviously, clearly now we can see as its biggest physical representation in the temple formed by the pharaoh Akhenaten. So there again we get the Egyptian interconnection to not only the biblical tradition through many of the patriarchs actually being Egyptian pharaohs. We then have the new breed of nonsense pushing itself forward, first by Akhenaten's father, who sort of put it into the mix, and then made physical by Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Probably killed because I was running the show when it came to Tutankhamun's time, or very short time as ruler in Egypt, when obviously they were shifting everything back to the original Egyptian pantheon of gods, as opposed to the very dictatorial and very racist monotheistic religion formed under the pharaoh Akhenaten. So there we can see the distinction, there we can see the origin, and now we need to bring that up into today and understand that the Noahide platform is exactly opposite of the biblical tradition. If you don't see it that way, you need to understand that there is grammar that you need to see in order to understand your predicament. And I would offer a great start in understanding the deceptions of the Schofield Bible, specifically played against the Protestant Christians from the early parts of the 20th century. I will put a report I've put together under this video so you can actually look at the specifics of the Schofield Bible and as to why and how it became so prevalent in the Protestant nations in the West. So with that, I will say have a good Sunday and till the next time.